Anyway, over to you, Christy.
All right.
All yours, sister.
So tonight we're going to be talking to the wonderful, beautiful soul that is Deb Haggerty. And we have some of our Elk Lake family on tonight. And, there are people in this world who use their ability to influence in a way that changes the lives of everyone around them. And Deb is one of these people. I haven't known her for long, I've only met her in person once. But she's just one of these people who just infuses the world with smiles, genuine encouragement, genuine caring for others, and you can always tell somebody who's the real deal or somebody who's just pretending. And she's not salesy, she's not pushy, she's just, I really think, trying to develop genuine relationships with everybody. And so I have the privilege tonight of narrating her vignette from her book, These Are the Days of My Life. And this particular vignette is titled Relationships Are Everything. In 1985, I risked everything, left my well-paying corporate career, and launched Positive Connections, formerly the Haggerty Group, my speaking and consulting business. My first two clients were, first, a company I had worked with while at AT&T, and second, one of the AT&T sales divisions. During my tenure at AT&T, I had carefully nurtured the relationships with these two groups. Nurturing means carefully tending, gently handling, and valuing the relationship. Valued relationships are to be cherished and cultivated so they grow strong and fruitful. Luke 6:38 in the New Living Translation teaches, "Give and you will receive. Your gift will be returned to you in full, pressed down, shaken together, to make room for more, running over and poured into your lap. The amount you give will determine the amount you get back." I became a student of relationships, something the business world calls networking. Networking is a process that can be learned and followed assiduously. There are 4 basic steps: principle, process, place, and practice. The principle has been stated by the scripture above. The next step is the process. Process. Determine the answers to the following questions. Why am I networking? With whom will I be networking? What am I able to give to the process? What do I hope to gain? When will I network? Next, set goals for networking. Decide on a particular time of day or the week when you will proactively network. Set up a system for tracking the contacts you make, whether paper or computer-based. Prepare the tools of networking: business cards, thank you notes, brochures. Make sure your materials are professional and reflect you. Remember, you want to make positive connections. Place. Where can you network? The possibilities are endless. Chambers of commerce, writers' conferences, social clubs and churches, networking groups, professional associations, PTA, charitable organizations. In other words, networking can happen anytime, in any place, with anyone. I once was standing in the lobby of a hotel in Charleston, waiting for the airport shuttle to arrive. Gazing around the lobby, I spied a woman taking a beautiful silver and royal blue necklace from a shopping bag and looking at it admiringly. "Those are my favorite colors," so I exclaimed to her, "My, what a pretty necklace." We began one of those hotel lobby or airport waiting area conversations we sometimes have with people whom we will never see again. She asked me if I was going to the airport, and if so, would I like to share the car she had coming. I gratefully accepted her invitation. As we were loading our luggage into the car, she chirped to me, "And what do you do?" My spirits plummeted. I was tired from a long trip, and I didn't want to go into sales mode, so I tried to be brief. "I'm a professional speaker, but I wasn't here speaking. I was helping a friend." "Oh, really?" she exclaimed. "I come to these conferences looking for speakers for my company." My inner voice sighed. "Why now, Lord? I'm so tired. I don't want to do this." We got into the car, and as we glided off to the airport, she asked, "What do you speak about?" I handed her my business card and mumbled my speeches were listed on the back. She read down a list of talks and said, "Right person, right job. What's that all about?" At that point, I gave up and realized I was getting into the conversation whether I wanted to or not. I explained that many of my consulting clients had been burned in the hiring-firing process, that I had found some objective assessments to use in the process, and that the speech taught a better methodology for hiring employees. "Really?" she excitedly interrupted. "I have to hire someone next week, and I can't afford to make a mistake. Please overnight me the marketing materials for these assessments." When I got home, I sent her the materials. She liked them and purchased the software and the assessments. Next, she hired me to come out and spend 2 days with her department to facilitate team building in the group. The day I returned from that engagement, I got a call from another group in the same company, asking when I could come back and do the same for them. 5 little words brought me almost 2/3 of my revenue for the year and brought me a new friendship. Now, because I know relationships are at the core of Deb's business model, and this isn't just a story, I asked some Elk Lake authors and staff to describe their relationship with Deb. L.G. Westlake, author, said, "Deb Haggerty's relation-driven approach to working with authors has changed the way I view the publishing industry. I've had ups and downs in the Christian publishing arena, but never have I had a publisher respond with such love and enthusiasm, not only to my work, but also to my many inquiries. Working with Deb has been the highlight of my career." Will Inman, managing editor, audio department, and author. Deb Haggerty's chief reason for success is she seeks to honor God in all she does, and everything she does is with the purpose of it benefiting all the participants, not just Elk Lake Publishing. She sees her work as a ministry, and she wants to be a platform where new authors have a voice and a chance to be successful. Deb is not only a smart businesswoman, she is a forward-thinking business owner who can see potential with innovation. When we decided to launch an audio department, Elk Lake Publishing was a small, faith-based, traditional publishing house that was actively seeking to stay relevant. None of us knew if we would be successful, but Deb was comfortable with taking a chance because the opportunity to succeed was enormous. We now have converted more than 50 of our titles into audio and have sold almost 900 audiobooks. At this moment, and many more in the pipeline, because she is willing to take a chance, she has led the way for faith-based books. She has led the way for faith-based books to be available in all markets. Erica Marie Hogan, author. "I was without an agent at the time I wrote The Good German Girl, and when Deb heard I might be going the route of self-publishing, she immediately reached out to me and asked why, and what did they need to do to keep me as their author. I explained the situation, and Deb's response was, 'You don't need an agent. We know you. Send me the manuscript.' With that email and the 5-book contract that followed, she reminded me that I have a publishing family who believe in me, and that's the kind of lasting relationship Deb builds with her authors." Dorinda Babcock, senior graphics designer, managing editor for Children's Book, and author. "My relationship with Deb grows and changes as my responsibilities with Elk Lake change. Deb and I started out as author and editor. In 2017, she asked me to be her senior graphics designer, and then, a year or 2 later, her managing editor for Children's Books. Each new role requires patience, understanding, and the willingness to work out the kinks that always arise. We started out with the stated understanding we would cut each other some slack. If I don't understand her reasons for doing things, I ask. If she doesn't understand why I make certain decisions, she asks. We don't always agree, but transparency, truthfulness, and understanding are critical in order to do the jobs we do." Henry Winkler said, "Assumptions are the termites of relationships. This is especially true in my relationship with Deb." Jason William Karpf, author. "I prayed about becoming a Christian author. My prayers were answered when I met Deb Haggerty. Teacher, champion, confidant. She is the hands and feet of God for me and many others. We get to call ourselves Christian authors because of her." Now, what does that say about this wonderful lady that I see in the screen and get to introduce to all of you tonight? So welcome, Deb. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I am happy to be with you. You've made me cry almost.
Oh, they're just telling the truth. Well, it's I really think it says a lot about what kind of person you are, and I didn't have to elbow anybody to get them to say these things. I just asked them if relationships were, if your relationship with them was something special, and obviously it is. Look at that beautiful top. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. So, you have lived, in my opinion, you have lived 3 or 4 people's lives worth of challenges. And look at the way you view life, relationships, smiles, loving on people. Um, your positive mindset seems to translate into everything. And I wondered if you could just give me a little bit of backstory on why positive is such a crucial word to you.
Oh, heavens. I guess because that is the driving force. If you're not positive about something, you're not going to get any place, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it's a task that you have to do. You just need to stay positive. So because relationships are so important to me, when I started my first company, I called it Positive Connections, because I was all about connecting people and teaching them how to connect well with others. And then after I had breast cancer, I started a website called Positive Hope, because in order to survive something like that, you have to stay positive and you have to have hope. And then when I started reviewing Christian books and doing my own editing business, I became Positive Grace, because I needed to stay positive in the editing business because it's very up and down. And I knew that I needed to be grace filled when I edited the books that came to me to read and to give my opinions on. So positive has just sort of surrounded everything that I've done, probably inherited from my dad.
That's, it's so genuine with you. That's one of the things. People talk about positive, and then they'll, in their private life, they're grumpy. And I don't sense that at all with you. Everyone is just with one voice. What a great relationship they have developed with you. When we talked, we always have a pre-production meeting, I and the authors, and in this case the publisher that I'm talking to. And you told me a beautiful story about one of your best friends that you met at a high school dance. And that story has stuck with me all week. And I wondered if you would be willing to talk about how important it is to be willing to take a chance to build a positive relationship. That story is so special. Would you mind sharing that?
Well, I know that nobody who knows me now would ever believe I was painfully shy, but I was. And when I was in college, I would cut classes rather than walk in after they started, because I didn't want people to look at me. But one time I was holding up the wall at a college dance, which was where I usually was, and I noticed another gal over to the beside of me who was in the same position. And I thought to myself, I wonder if she feels the same way I do. Maybe I should go talk to her. No, you don't want to go talk to her. Well, why not? Well, she might turn me down. Well, then what happens? It's her loss. So I went over and said hello, and she became one of my best friends in college. And we both laughed about the fact that we were wallflowers and holding up the wall, but that we probably got more out of the dance than anybody else did.
Probably. Do you have to fight that inner voice even now? The one that says, why would you try? You're going to fail. Or have you been able to silence that voice at this point?
Once in a while. I think all of us have a pretender feeling that we're sort of living out somebody else's life or acting our way through it. And I think that's Satan telling us that we're not as good as we think we are, or we're not as good as we should be. Right. So it's a daily process, and it's asking God to make sure that what I do that day is honoring to him. And that helps me get through the troughs. And, sometimes I am grumpy. Just ask my husband, but it always comes around.
Well, everybody has their moments. You should see me when I'm hungry. It's a wild scene. Brett can, it's ugly.
I've seen it. It's scary.
It is. I always have some kind of food in my purse so I don't, commit a homicide. Anyway, but you know what? When you told me that story, that really stuck with me. And I wanted you to also explain, there's other relationships that you have developed through who, how. Could you explain what who, how means?
Well, before I married the love of my life, Roy Haggerty, my last name was Howe. And when I was working with AT&T, people would call me who, how, because if I didn't know how to do something, I knew who to go to find out how to do it. Because I've always built relationships and networks and have always tried to remember those people to whom I could give something, because as the scripture that you read said, it always comes back.
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely true. But, you know, we've talked a little bit, you and I talked about stories, and, you know, being a publisher, you do fiction and nonfiction. But certainly, as evidenced in your book, you're telling your stories. And we talked about how Jesus told stories. And you were talking, you know, I asked you, I said, why do people need stories? Why do you think people, when they have all these other options, why do they still go to books, print, audio, ebooks? Why are they still looking for that? What are they hoping to get?
Well, I think people go to these things for several different reasons. Sometimes they're going because they need to learn something, just like you guys went to YouTube to learn how to better do your business. People read books for educational purposes. Sometimes they want to escape. I mean, when things get really tough and I just want to run away and hide, I'll grab a good mystery and curl up in a chair and escape to another world.
That's right.
They look, you know, for emotional things. They want to feel somebody else's emotions, and they want encouragement. And sometimes books are the most encouraging things that you can possibly go to get that encouragement, especially scriptures.
Yeah.
So people need story to let them know that they're not alone in the world, that there are others who have been through things similar to what they're going through. And they remember stories better, just like you remembered the story of the gal at the dance. People remember stories, and that impacts them much longer than simply reading some facts or some data.
Absolutely. Yes, I wrote down something you said in our interview. You said stories talk to our hearts, and I think that's brilliant.
Yes.
They do. And I always feel when I'm narrating, I'm always trying to get to the emotion of whatever is happening, whatever the conversation is, or whatever the you know, the backstory is. Where is the emotion in this particular scene? And when I think about the way that you have, I mean, you have carved a nice little niche with Elk Lake. You know, I've been writing professionally for 15 years, and you know, when I look at the other companies that I have dealt with, Elk Lake stands alone in the effort that you put forth, from what I can see, to build these very personal and important relationships. It's something clearly you prioritize. It's not simply getting a book out there that will change lives. It's obviously something where you want to change lives in the sense of working with this person and having that ripple effect. You know, we talked a little bit about your, you know, what you're looking for when you look at a manuscript. And one of the things that I thought was pretty cool is you were saying, if it's nonfiction, have a different way of telling it. And obviously you approach your business, let's do this differently. So I wondered if you could speak to that.
Well, when we started the company, I bought the company 6 years ago this last month. And when we started the company, I heard in my spirit God telling me, you know, what I want you to do with Elk Lake is to come alongside those authors that I bring to you and make sure that their words get out to the public in a very professional manner.
Yeah.
And I want you to go alongside them, not only in helping them with their writing, but be there as a coach and an encourager.
Yeah.
And then along the way, as we got larger and added staff, I got the additional responsibility of coaching editors and helping them be better in what they do. In fact, every manuscript that we do, I'm the last editor on the book, and I send my edits not only back to the author, but to my editors as well, so they can see what I've done and what they might have missed, or something that I do differently that they could learn from.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about helping others be the best that they can be.
Mm-hmm. Well, your life has not, I mean, nobody can say they've had an easy life, I'm sure. But you've been through a lot, a whole lot. And, I know that you just recently published Enough by Diana Mood. And it won, was it second place in the memoir category at the Selah Awards? Is that right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
congratulations. And I'm thrilled that I'm going to have a chance to talk to her. I believe it's August 15th, and on my own spin-off of this show. But, I'm mindful of the parallels between your journey and hers in a lot of ways. And I wondered if you would be comfortable talking. You had said, we talked about how you gave 8 years of your life to taking care of your mother. And I believe you call her Mama. Is that right?
Well, I call her lots of things, or I did. Mama is one. Mom is the most frequent. But yes, my mother lived we lived in Orlando at the time, and my mother lived in St. Petersburg. And as she got older, she started having more illnesses and falling. And I would find myself on I-4 trekking across to St. Petersburg from Orlando, which is not a great highway to travel in the best of times. And finally we said, Mama, why don't you come and live with us, or come at least to Orlando? So she got an apartment in Orlando, and we moved her over to be close to us. And then after a year, my husband said, why is your mom living in an apartment? We've got room here. Why doesn't she come and live with us? So we asked her, and she said yes. And the next few years until she passed away in 2013 were some of the best years of my life, because I got to know my mom not only as a mother, but as a friend and a confidant, and hear all her old stories about her life, and really appreciate her for the wonderful woman she was.
And then you've had some of your own personal challenges, haven't you?
Well, yes, I did. I mentioned that I was a professional speaker when I was talking to that woman in the limousine. And I was doing that, and I was about to take off on my career. I was starting to speak more nationally, and the Lord blessed me with breast cancer. And one of the things that happens to a lot of women when they have breast cancer is the treatment, if they have chemo, causes them to lose their hair. And being a somewhat feisty person, I refused to wear a wig or a hat most of the time. So I was going around bald. And it seemed that meeting planners didn't want a bald speaker on the platform if they were female. So I stayed home and did talk radio and a lot of other things until my hair grew back. And then I found that I was taking care of Mama. So the speaking business is something that I do now at writers' conferences and here and there. But my main career is caring for others.
But you made a comment. You said that you were playing computer games and you were sitting around, and you said, I feel like I've been thrown away. How did you transform yourself from feeling like you've been thrown away to being a publisher who has opened doors for so many people, to the point that one of your authors' books, novels, was used as a textbook for World War I? That would be Erica Marie Hogan. Her novel has been used as a textbook in a college class.
The Lost Generation. Yes.
It's pretty impressive.
The Lost Generation was a wonderful book. I did. When I had cancer and I was home a lot, and then when I was taking care of Mama, I had to be here. And I really was playing a lot of computer games, but that's one of the ways my mind works. If I need to get my mind off of something, I play games, and then my creativity can come forward in another side of my brain. But I did wonder whether I'd been thrown away. I wondered whether all of the skills and abilities that I'd gained over my career had been wasted because I was doing nothing that other than caring for my mom. And then two things happened. One, I started my editing business because I'd been editing for friends, and one day it hit me, Deb, you could make some money from this. And so I started Positive Grace in my editing business. And the other thing was, I realized that caring for someone you love very much and keeping your home and keeping out, looking out for others was just as valuable as being a manager or a speaker or anything else, because it is those relationships that matter. Anything else can go away, but the people in your life are what are important.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped me turn things around. And then when we had the opportunity for Elk Lake, as I said, this became a God-given responsibility and something that I can love.
And you love on your authors too.
I try.
Why do you think God, when things are rolling along, why do you think he allows those obstacles? Because I don't know anybody who hasn't had something like that happen to them. Why do you think he does that?
Well, you'd have to ask him, but sometimes I think that he gives us the valleys to stretch us, and so that we can grow, and so that we can value the other people who are around us as well that are helping us get through it. And so we can learn that we're vulnerable and that what we have to depend on mostly is him.
Yeah,
if we don't depend on him, we really have nothing.
Yeah, the story of
That's
Elijah.
the most important. That's the most important relationship.
Absolutely. I the story of Elijah, and after he has his day, he's calling down fire, and he's destroying all the Baal prophets, and then he all of a sudden he's running for his life. And we all know about the still small voice story, but one thing that sort of leapt out at me recently was that he fled to a different wilderness. He fled to, I believe it was the wilderness of Beersheba, and God wanted him to go to the wilderness of Damascus. And the reason I bring this up is because he has, okay, we got the earthquake, he's not in the earthquake, we got the fire, God's not in the fire, he's not in the wind, but he's in a still small voice, and the voice says, go to the wilderness of Damascus, and I want you to anoint these 3 people. It was very clear, concrete goals, and I look at your life, and I think about what you had to do, and it's like, okay, I have breast cancer. What am I supposed to do? Go take care of my mother. Go buy a publishing company. Go do things that might not have made a lot of sense to you when you were continuing to be this successful. And I mean, not that you were not able to succeed in other things, but if your speaking ministry had taken off the way you had envisioned it, you might not have been able to stop and then do exactly these precise things. And when I look at what you have done,
Exactly.
you allowed yourself to be in that wilderness so that God could say, go, Deb, and do this, this, and this, and look at what has come from it, I mean, she has it. For those of you who don't know, in May of this year, she had a conference, and she doesn't call it a writer's conference. She doesn't call it anything business. She calls it her family reunion, and she means it. She really does. These are family to her. It's again back to the relationships thing. And I just think that it's a beautiful thing, Deb. I really, really do. And it is because it's so genuine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you all are my family.
But you did some gutsy stuff. I mean, you told a man who owned a company that you had decided you were going to work for as an editor, and you sat there and said, I am not going to publish buddy books. You want to talk about that a little bit?
The way I got acquainted with Elk Lake is I went to work for a friend of mine who was the acquisitions editor for Elk Lake, editing fiction. And my relationship was with her. It was not with the publisher. And after she left, I happened to be sitting at a dinner with he and his wife and some other people. And I was in one of those crazy moods that you get sometimes when you don't care what you say, or at least what you're thinking comes out of your mouth when it probably shouldn't. And I said to him, I've edited probably 14 or 15 of your books in the last year, and maybe 5 of them will sell. The rest of them are buddy books. And he looked horrified, and my roommate across the table from me looked horrified. And I shrugged my shoulders and went, well, it's the truth. And then about about 2 weeks after we got back from the conference, I got a call from him, and he said, I don't want to publish buddy books. I want to publish good books. Would you come and be my acquisitions editor? And I told him that I would, on one condition, that I got to buy the books. And so over the next year and a half, 2 years, I don't remember how long at this point in time, I learned the publishing business from the inside out, and he gradually ceded more and more the responsibility to me. And then when he got very ill and couldn't continue, he was going to give the publishing company to somebody else. And I said, well, I don't go with it. And Roy and I prayed about it and said, why don't you sell it to us? And he did. And in June of 2016, we became Elk Lake. So another one of those situations where words coming out of your mouth change your life.
But look where the wallflower transformed into somebody who had the guts to say what needed to be said. You know? Okay, so we have a few more minutes before this link is going to expire, and then Brett will send you another link, Deb. So we don't, oh, you have it? Oh, okay, she has the link.
I have it.
When it goes away, you just log back in, and we'll bring you back on. Christy will do a couple tips and tricks while you're gone, and we'll bring you back on, and it'll be just like we planned it.
Well, I'm really glad you had the courage, though, to say that, because the world needs books that aren't just meant to be bought by a handful of friends. You know, we need the ones that'll change lives. And one of the reasons why I have loved working with your authors is because the quality of writing is so high. Oh my goodness. I mean, sometimes I think I'm becoming snobbish. I read books and I'm like, boy, this is not up to Dorinda's level, or this is not up to Erica's. This is not up to Will. This is not up to Jason. This is not up to Steve. This is not up to these people I've been working. This is not up to Debbie. And it's just like, obviously you have great taste in who you're willing to work with. And it's phenomenal. It's a great, beautiful thing. I enjoy it tremendously. But you know, I just when we come back, I want to talk to you about what you're looking for when you acquire a book. So.
All right. So we're gonna. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and take it over to Christy, and then we'll bring Deb up on the new link. We'll see you on the new link, Deb. Bye.
So
wait a minute, real quick, everybody. Just want you to know. I'm arm wrestling with Facebook at the moment. I'm trying to send you all comments to set up the next segment, to give direction on Q&A at the end of the interview. But it's on my feed. It's on my feed, and I've been barred from commenting.
Oh, great.
This and the last time this happened, I just clicked. I understand the community guidelines to my own live stream.
Yeah.
And then it let me comment. But I'm evidently barred from commenting for the rest of the show until I behave myself. I don't know what I did. So if you don't see me commenting anymore, that's why. And I'm wondering, I haven't seen any fresh comments from anybody else. So if you're able to comment, please throw me a comment or two so they know that comments are still working.
Right.
And if I don't see anything come up, then I know then that Facebook's just banned everybody from commenting. Anyway, I got to get back on this other link. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Christy. I had to let everybody know that.
No, I'm glad you did. That's fine. I always try to include some narrating tips and tricks. And tonight I am talking more to the authors. I have found that I can tell within a page or two an author who narrates aloud, who edits aloud, rather. I encourage you, and I am begging you, to edit your work aloud, because when you're reading your work out loud, you'll realize that you have a 30-word sentence and that no human being can narrate 30 words without a breath. And especially if you don't have commas or semicolons or any natural place to pause. There have been sentences where by the time I got to the end of it, I was, gasping because I couldn't find a place to breathe in that sentence. And I have learned that I just have to force a breath in sometimes. But if you narrate, you get a feel of the story on another level. So if you read your work aloud, it's going to make your writing stronger, and it's going to make it easier on your narrator and then on the listener as well. Because this isn't the 18th century. We don't have, sentences that last a paragraph. So it's just, things have just, it's different. So that helps a lot. Also, please, pretty please, provide pronunciation guides for your authors. And I don't mean simply if you have a bunch of Spanish words. It helps so much, especially when you're in the sci-fi genre. There's a lot of created words, and I don't know how that word sounds if I don't ask it. So that's something. Attach a pronunciation guide. That really, really helps.
Yeah, for sure.
Specify accents if possible. If this person's speaking Spanish, is it going to be a Mexican accent? Is it going to be from Mexico City? Is it going to be a Spanish accent? Argentinian? Like, we need to know that so that we're on the same page, because heaven help me if I would have had to start all over again with Colorado Treasure. If Dorinda had wanted the Mexico City accent, I would have been in big trouble, because I was doing one that was not from Mexico City. And then the other thing, please be responsive and available, because a good narrator is going to want to make sure that he or she is meeting your expectations. And sometimes that means it's 9:30 on a weeknight and she's trying to figure out how to pronounce this word because it wasn't in the guide. Or is this particular character, is this person living in a city and you're not aware of it and they might have a slight accent? Or how old is this person? You don't say. Or you realize in chapter 2 that this person has a nasal nasal way of talking, and you didn't say that in the prologue. Do I need to go back and fix it? You need to be responsive. So be willing to share your cell phone number so you can text back and forth. And even maybe go to the trouble of creating a specific text tone for your narrator so that you hear that and you're responsive, because you can't imagine how hard it is to go back and fix something. One time I had to fix 36 places where I had mispronounced the name. That takes a lot of work. So you want to be able to communicate quickly and effectively. And please, 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 pronunciation guides and read aloud. Edit your work out loud. So that's my little spiel for the night.
It was a good one. Really good. Are you ready? Deb's ready.
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. You're on, Deb. You're back.
Do you encourage...
I'm back.
Do you encourage your authors to edit aloud? Is that something you ever do?
That is one of the ways we do that. Yes, we do.
Makes a difference. Holy cow. So when people come to you looking for the chance to be published, you do take first-time authors, correct?
Yes, I do.
Which sets you apart.
Well, everybody was a first-time author at one point in time, even the best of the best now. I know I heard a story from Davis Bunn one time that it took him 9 years and 9 attempts before he got his first publishing contract. So, even the best writers had to start someplace.
Yep.
But our special mission is to work with new authors. But it's not just taking every new author, because what we are now saying is we want you to, first of all, be an excellent writer. That's number one. You need to know your craft. You need to be able to follow directions. On our website, we offer a proposal guidelines, and we offer a style sheet. And when I did both of these, I created them as generically as possible so that if someone did a proposal for us and then it didn't work out and they tried to go someplace else, they could cut and paste from our guidelines to somebody else's almost flawlessly. Same thing with the style sheet. We're telling you the things that you may get tripped up on that everybody looks for. So that's one of the things we do for first-time authors and for experienced authors to help them do what they do better.
Yeah. And then you also have some specific advice for new authors, including don't quit your day job, correct?
Right. I learned that a long time ago when I first started in the professional speaking business. And one of my mentors said, you realize that with this business, no matter how successful you are, you don't quit your day job for at least 7 years. And I would say that probably 90% of the authors that I know are still working in other jobs unless
Yeah.
they have a way to support themselves besides with their writing. A
Right.
lot of them edit on the side, a lot of them speak on the side, but most writers aren't going to make a living from their writing. And that's just a sad set of facts.
Yeah.
There's somewhere around 2,500 books a day published.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard to get noticed. It's very hard to become a bestseller. And you need to have some motivation besides money behind what you do,
Mm-hmm.
because then you'll know you're a success, whether it's from a monetary standpoint or not.
Now, what do you gain as an author by coming to your company as opposed to just self-publishing?
Well, it's not every company where you can pick up the phone and talk to the publisher anytime you want to. It's not every place you can be part of a family. And we truly do treat Elk Lake like a family. And we are in this for a ministry. God has blessed my husband and I so that we don't require the revenue from Elk Lake to live on. So everything that Elk Lake makes goes back into the authors and into making Elk Lake better. We don't pay advances. We give 40% royalties instead because we want to be in a partnership with our authors. We want them to be part of the family, and we know that they're going to have to work hard on the marketing aspect because there's very little that we can help them with other than tips of the trade that we give in our closed Facebook group every week, every day, sometimes twice a day.
Yes.
And that's another thing. We have a closed Facebook group for our authors, and we function as a community.
Mm-hmm.
The authors review for each other. They support each other. We have a very strong prayer ministry through our Facebook group and our authors. So I don't know that that's found anyplace else.
Not that I've seen. Learn the craft. That's another piece of advice you would give, correct?
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Go to as many writing conferences as you can afford to go to. Buy the books on craft. We always are telling our authors, don't tell, show.
Mm-hmm.
And that is making your words come alive.
Yeah.
It's putting in the emotion that you look for when you're narrating something. Mm-hmm. It's helping those words that you put on the page be something besides black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I tell a story about one guy who's one of my favorite people, and I still recommend his book every time I have a chance to. He wrote a book about a woman named Joanna, who was one of the women who followed Jesus. And she was also the wife of Chusa, who was Herod's steward. And he was talking about them having had an argument and that Chusa just turned around and walked out the door. And I said, he's not going to do that if he's mad, if they're fighting. He didn't do that. He spun around on his wheel. He threw his cloak over his shoulder, stomped across the floor, and slammed the door so hard it rebounded.
Right.
Which gives you the better emotion of the scene? So that's what we're trying to help authors do. And that's one of the things you can learn by reading other people's books, by reading craft books. Mm-hmm. One of the best books that we know for writing tightly and making sure that every word you use counts is another Davis Bunn book, and it's called Unscripted. Story's good too, but the writing is outstanding.
Mm-hmm. Yes. There are a lot of good writing handbooks out there. I've heard for a list a mile long. You could spend thousands of dollars on writing books, but I know that the Style Bible is the Chicago Manual of Style, and you said you read that cover to cover every year, correct?
Yes, I do, just about every year, and especially when a new guide comes out. And every time I do, I learn something new, because there's no way, when the English language changes as much as it does from year to
Yeah,
year, that you can keep up on things.
absolutely. Um, you also said that the published book may be very different from your original manuscript. Um, and
Yes.
I wondered if you could speak to that quickly about that. Maybe how would it look
Well,
different?
it looks different because
Mhm.
when you're working on your book, you're working in Microsoft Word, and it's on a 8.5 by 11 page, and that's the way you get your first round of edits back. And once you have come to a conclusion on those edits, then it comes to us, and we format your book in what it's going to look like for print. And we send that book back to you in a side by side format, the size that the print book's going to look. And it's amazing how many errors and mistakes and misstatements come out of looking at it in a different format.
Mhm.
And then for some reason, when you get the print book or you read the ebook, you'll find other things that you want to change. So from a formatting standpoint, the book is going to look very different. And sometimes the interior, the words of the book are going to look different too. That same gentleman I was talking about before, after he got my first set of edits back, he said to me, I expected some red ink, but I didn't expect the whole bottle in the first 17 pages. And we still laugh about that to this day.
Oh.
So you may need to change the way you say things if you're not saying them correctly, or so that the reader will understand them.
But don't you think a true professional will be willing to do the work to edit it in order to get the story out there?
Yes. Someone who is really passionate about the writing, someone who is a lifelong learner, will be willing to accept the criticism, hard as it is sometimes, and work to make their books better. We have another book that we published called The Thin Space by Dan Stoughton. And I think we ended up taking about 4 chapters worth of material out of that book, simply because it wasn't carrying his story along in the way that he really needed it to be carried. And Dan was very much of a learner. I mean, we had some back and forth and some arguments, but he finally understood that we needed him. We needed his characters needed him to not have some of the material in the book.
Mm-hmm. And by the same token, one of the things that you offer that a self published novelist can't have is professional editing services. And that's free
Yes.
to the author, correct?
Well, yes, it's free to the author. In fact, they go 3 or 4 rounds with one of our professional editors, and then it comes to me. And like I said, I'm the last look before it goes out the door. So you get 2 professional editors looking at your book, and as many passes as it's needed to make sure that the book says and looks the way you want it to.
And you
If
communicate
you're
with
a
the author.
self-published, I was going to say, if you're a self-published author, you have to pay for your own cover, you have to pay for the editors, you have to pay for the formatting. And if you don't, your book is not going to be as good as it could have been had it gone through, had you paid the professionals to help you with the process.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And let's just say you have a very talented senior graphics designer, cover designer.
Yes, I do. And I have 4 or 5 other great managing editors now too. We've grown to the point I couldn't handle it all myself. So I
Yeah.
have Travis doing my Will doing my audiobooks. I have Crystal doing fiction, Dorinda doing children's, and Judy doing my nonfiction. And I have someone doing special projects who's investigating the homeschool market right now. So we've grown a lot, and God has blessed the company.
And you have Kristen Tourette, who is doing your social media campaigns and things like that,
Yes,
page
and doing a
management.
wonderful
Yes,
job.
she is.
Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome. Um, yeah, I know editing can feel painful, but I also think that most authors, again, the pros, would say that their books are much better for the editing and for being willing to be teachable.
Yes.
You also talked about being sure that the authors are called to write. What does that mean, in your opinion?
To me, it means that an author couldn't do anything else. I fought against it for years. When I was a professional speaker, everybody said, Deb, you have to have a book. And I said, I don't want a book. I don't want to write a book. I don't want to take the time to write a book. I'm too lazy to write a book. And they said, well, you have to have a book. And I said, no. But what I did do as a deliberate marketing technique is write vignettes for other people's books, little stories that I must be published now in 23 or 24 other people's books, both business books and Christian books. And I never felt called to write. But some people can't not write. You know, their characters talk to them. They just have to put the words down on paper, you know, because God won't let them not write. And we finally ended up with a couple of books. My husband doesn't like to write either, and was writing a guideline for himself to use when he was mentoring others. And a friend of ours said, well, you're going to publish that, right? He said, no. And she said, well, how selfish can you be? And so Experiencing God's Love in a Broken World is now published. And, you know, it's not something he wanted to do. He wasn't called to do it. But when he found that it had value elsewhere, he went ahead and published it. And then a lot of my vignettes got drawn together into a book too. Again, that one I wanted to do because I wanted to join an association where you had to have 2 published books in order to belong. And I was trying to convince this woman that I had all these other stories in other people's books. And she said, well, Deb, why don't you pull them together and put them in a compilation book of your own? And I went, duh, why didn't I think of that? So I now have 2 published books. But for other people, I mean, we both did it for reasons other than being called to write. But for those who are called, it's something that they have in their heads that God won't let them not write down. And it's something that they feel that they have to do in order practically to live and breathe.
That's right. That's right. I mean, Dorinda and Erica both said that they have had storylines come to them in dreams. And yeah.
Yes.
That's pretty profound when you really take that apart and think about it. You know, even when they're sleeping, they're writing, they're receiving story instructions from God, and yeah, that's a calling. And from what I have seen from the authors that I know through Elk Lake, there's a difference between writing and being a writer. Somebody who writes might not necessarily be a called author the way that the people I have met are.
Correct.
And a willingness to write about
That's
some of the
true.
things they write. Diane Mood and Erica with the Good German Girl and the things that you have written about. It takes guts. I mean, it really takes courage, I think, to be a professional author.
It does, to be a good one.
Yeah. To hit the emotion.
Yeah. I know I've gotten a good book when while I'm doing my edits, I find myself dreaming about the book. Then I know I've got a good one because they've not let my mind go.
Yeah. Wow. That is good stuff. Holy cow. I'm looking at Brett. Yeah. When you, the editor, are dreaming about the story, wow, that's something to aspire to. Holy cow. That's awesome. Well, it has been a joy talking to you tonight. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Freedom Day, Independence Weekend. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, we
appreciate you.
Q&A.
We have
you're
some
welcome.
questions.
Yeah, let's. Are you ready to move into the Q&A spot?
I am ready. So obviously Facebook got you out of jail?
No, I arm wrestled and won.
Good
I
job.
fought Facebook and I won.
That's P90X for you.
Well, I want to start the Q&A section with actually some comments.
Okay.
So there were some wonderful comments coming across the screen as you were interviewing Deb. And rightfully so. Terry Graham says, Deb and Roy are expanding my visions. Thank you so much. I want him, all capital letters, to use these for his kingdom. So that was from Terry Graham, who's been with us since the get-go.
And she's a very dear friend of Diane Moods, correct?
Yes.
And Dorinda says, and these are some of my favorite editors. And Diana Mood says, amen to the skilled talent Deb has working with her at Elk Lake Publishing. Thank you, all of you.
I'm sorry, I keep calling you Diane. It's Diana. I apologize.
Diana, that's my bad, too. I totally,
I apologize.
Yeah.
I hate it when people call me Christine. That annoys me. It's Christy. Sorry. Oh, don't call me Christina.
I know that. I didn't do it.
That's
All
my
right,
full
anyway.
name.
Deb's proposal, Diana Mood, one more comment from her was, Deb's proposal guidelines are very helpful. I learned a lot. So there's a smart author right there.
Yes, indeed.
There's a successful
Teachable
author.
spirit.
Yep, exactly. Learn, do, teach. Now, there are some questions I want to get back to. One of them goes way back to the narration tips you were giving.
Oh, okay.
Which there was a comment. I can't remember who said it. I can't follow. Mary Albers Felkins. She said, "Great insight from the voice actor behind the scenes." That was after your little tips and tricks on the intermission with the interview.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome stuff. All right, this question is for you, Christy.
Oh.
This question is, with dialogue, when there is not said, quote unquote, or action best after every character speaks, how do you put the change of character in the narration, particularly between two characters who sound alike in age and education, etc.?
I go with earlier dialogue tags, and I go with the overall description. And a lot of times, what I'll do, I'm going through this right now with Will Inman's Chrome World. There's a scene in the opening chapters. He has 5 young men. They are all white. They are all from a suburb. They are all the same age except one. And I had to go through yesterday. I worked on it for hours trying to come up with the right voices, the right tones to separate them, because they're all kind of nerdy and that's challenging. And so what I did was I started thinking about the speech patterns of some of my son's friends, because they're all very similar from the same region and everything, same type of background. And I started to thinking about how they hold their faces when they talk, or how they move their heads when they talk, or the overall tone. And I just started copying some of those things. So it would be very amusing to see how I hold my face sometimes when I'm developing some of these voices, because in order to make it sound differently, I'll have to hold my mouth differently.
Well, maybe you should put that in your new show on your Facebook page, Storytime with Christy Lou.
I don't
if
think
you want to see those faces, man.
I don't think I want it.
Hey, there's another question here for you, Christy, from Mary Albers Felkins. How are the italicized internal dialogue handled? So if there's internal dialogue to a character,
I just use their voice. Because
now I'm going to interject here. I wonder if we should. I don't know how that would go. You'd have to check with the author, I guess, to see if they liked it or not. I think we even toyed with this idea of adding reverb, a light reverb. You know how when you watch a show and the person's thinking in their head, it gets reverbish.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If it were a horror story or something like that, or
I don't know. Sometimes I you just think about TV shows you watched, especially when we were kids. If the person was thinking in their head, to change the voice, so there was obviously something going on. It wasn't like you were watching and it's like, how come their mouth isn't moving? It was like obvious, because there was that sound, that reverb sound, like in a big hall.
We did do that with one character in
Oh, I remember,
Deborah
Debbie Jeter's.
Debbie Jeter's book, Deborah Coleman Jeter's book, Joy Afternoon. One of her characters, Marianne, she is, I don't know if we can say as far as psychotic, but she is hearing her mother's voice, her deceased
I
mother's
remember
voice, and
doing
she's
that.
constantly tormenting her and criticizing her, and she's never good enough, never good enough. And she starts having a conversation with her, and we did go ahead and use the reverb in that, and I felt it was effective.
I do remember
But
that, yeah.
that, that's something that we would definitely want to talk to the author about before we
exactly.
decided
What's all
to
that-
do
what's that
reverb
funky
in the book.
noise? Hey guys, if you have any questions for Deb, now's the time to answer them. If you have any questions for Christy, now's the time to answer them. If you have any engineering questions for myself, now's the time to answer them. Otherwise, we're going to give the final word to Deb, and then we're going to wrap things up. So I'll give you, we'll say another minute to ask a question. So throw it in the comments now, and if not, we'll go ahead and wrap things up for the night. But if you have anything last you want to ask to Deb, or Deb, do you have anything you want to wrap up by saying before we go?
I just want to say that I'm very, very, very proud of my family, and I love you all. And Elk Lake would not be Elk Lake without all of you and without all the encouragement you give me and give each other. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, I keep saying it, but you're just a beautiful soul. Thank you for being here. Truly, we're honored, and we're honored to be working with Elk Lake.
Welcome. I'm honored that God lets me do this because it's all because of him and for him.
Amen.
Awesome.
Amen. Do we have any other questions?
No, ma'am. Nothing came in, so I think that's it.
Well, thank you all for watching and for being here. We've had a good time.
Yeah, well, let's say goodbye to Deb, and then we'll say goodbye to everybody else, and we'll sign off proper.
Yes, sir.
Deb, thank you so much for coming on our 5th episode of the miniseries Barn Show Books. Working with Elk Lake Publishing is just a real treat for us, and getting to know you more and more and more. The more I know, the more I like, and it's just great to be hanging out with a group of fine individuals and fine Christians like yourself. So appreciate you being on tonight, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
My pleasure.
All righty. See you next time.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.